the Idlewild Dress Crochet Along. I'm Jess from Make and Do Crew, and I'm so glad you're joining us in crocheting your own dress. Today is super exciting because we get to move into the skirt section of the pattern. This is where you're really going to get to customize your dress or top by deciding exactly how long you want it to be. Depending on the size that you're making, this section can be a little bit more time consuming, so don't sweat it if you just need to work at your own pace. The printable ad-free PDF version of the pattern includes a stitch chart that's going to be really helpful for this skirt, so I'm going to go ahead and drop the link where you can grab that right below this video. Okay, let's get into the tutorial. To begin our row 1 of the skirt, we're going to want to attach our yarn in one of the side seams. So either one is fine. We just want to make sure that we have the right side of the fabric facing toward us. This is the bottom of the bodice now. So the skirt is going to be worked down this way. And you can attach it just in either seam, but once you do, we're going to work a single crochet round around to set a nice foundation for the lace that's going to build on top of it. So I have attached my yarn here and I'm chaining 1, and then I'm just going to single crochet in each stitch around. And again, you want to just double check that your right side is facing here, because then everything is going to line up as you work the lace. And I like to just crochet over my yarn tail from attaching my yarn here so that I don't have to weave it in later. And we're going to skip the 2 stitches that are lost to the seam on either side here. So it can be a little tricky to see, but you can check the written pattern to know how many stitches you should end up with in this round, and if it takes a little sort of fudging around the seam to get that number, that's totally fine. So let's go ahead and work single crochet all the way around here, and then we'll move on to starting our lace. As we finish up round 1, I'm just going to slip stitch in the first single crochet of the round. So I'm going to place a stitch marker in that slip stitch, and that's just going to remind me where this round started. And it's a good practice to just do that as we continue so that you always know where your round starts and ends. So from here, all sizes are going to chain 4, and that counts as 1 single crochet and then a chain 3 space. So what's going to happen in round 2 now is going to vary a little bit based on your size, because we need to get to a stitch multiple of 6 for this round, but not all of our dresses will have a perfect multiple of 6 in this round 1. So what we're going to do is turn our work. We're going to be working in the wrong side of the fabric now. So here's the seam of the side of the top, and in the pattern it is going to tell you to either skip 2 or 3 stitches right here. And eventually we're all going to be skipping 2 stitches, but we may, in your size, need to skip 3 a couple times just to absorb some extra stitches before we move into the repeat pattern where we skip 2. So go ahead and look at the written pattern to see what you should be skipping and how many times, but the concept is the same no matter what. So what we're going to do is chain those 4, and then for my size I need to skip 3 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, and you may be skipping 2. And then after I've skipped my stitches, in the next stitch I'm going to create a V. And so the way that we're all going to do that is the same. It's with a single crochet, and then we're going to chain 3, and then a single crochet back into the same stitch as that first single crochet. So we've created a little loop there. And now we're going to chain 3 again. And I'm going to skip 3 stitches again. You may be skipping 2 right here. So 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to do a single crochet right there. And again, if you're a visual learner, that chart in the paid PDF will be super helpful in sort of understanding how these stitches work together. So from here, I'm going to chain 3 again, and no matter what size you're doing, you're always, in this round, chaining 3, but the number of stitches that we're skipping is going to vary a little bit, and that's in the written pattern for you. So I'm again going to skip 3, 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to work a V stitch into the next stitch. So my V is a single crochet, 3 chains, and then another single crochet. And now we're going to chain 3 again, and I'm going to skip 3. You may skip 2, 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to work a single crochet into the next stitch. So now I've completed 2 repeats here. It's a little bit hard to see until it grows a little, but what we're looking at is the chain space right here, and then that V-stitch, and then another chain space, and that is 1 repeat right there. And then we have another one, so we put that single crochet here, another chain space, a V-stitch, and a chain space. So we've got 2 repeats, and in my pattern, for the size I'm making, I needed to do 2 repeats where I was skipping 3 stitches. So now I've absorbed my extra stitches and I'm ready to move on to the basic repeat that I'm going to complete the rest of the way around. So again, your size may be a little bit different, but this is the part, as soon as in your size of the pattern it says to start skipping 2 stitches, this is what it's going to look like. It's very familiar because it's basically what we did here. So again, I'm going to chain 3, and now I'm only skipping 2, 1, 2, and in the 3rd stitch here, I'm going to work that V, so it's a single crochet, 1, 2, 3 chains, another single crochet, and then I chain 3 again, 1, 2, 3, and now I'm skipping 2 stitches and I'm going to single crochet in the next one. So obviously that's very similar to the first version we did. Now we're just skipping 2 stitches. So let's go ahead and work that all the way around. And as we come upon the end of our round here, I'm going to slip stitch into that first chain space, and that's going to join our round, and I'm going to take my stitch marker out so that I can reuse it at the beginning of round 3. So round 2 didn't obviously have any shells in it. It was sort of a V-stitch round, and this skirt is going to have a total of 4 rounds in the repeat. So this is a round 2, and our next round is going to be a shell round. So we're always going to work a loop round like this, and then a shell round, and then a loop round, and then a shell round. So I'm going to turn my work here because for the shell rounds, the right side is always going to be facing out. And again, you can tell that it's your right side because at this point your seams are on the wrong side and these nice little bumps are on the right side. So to begin round 3, I'm going to slip stitch into the first chain loop there. And that is not part of the repeat, that's just sort of to get my yarn in the right spot. So from there, I'm going to put my stitch marker there. And then I'm going to chain 1, and that's the real beginning of this round 3. So we're chaining 1, single crocheting in that first loop there. And then I'm going to work a shell, and the reason we know that it's a shell is because we're working into the V-stitch loop from before. So that's right here, and we're always going to put a shell in those loops. So the shell consists of 4 double crochets and then chain 2 and then 4 more double crochets, and they're all going to go in that little loop there. So that looks like this. We're going to do 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, 3, and 4. And then we're going to chain 2, so that's going to be the middle of our shell. And then in that same space right here, I'm going to put 4 more double crochets. One, two, 3, and 4. So you can see now we've got a little shell going here, and now we need to anchor our shell down with a single crochet in the next chain loop. So that's right here. These, because we're working over that single crochet, those are always going to have a single crochet here and then a chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then a single crochet in the next chain loop. So that's right here on the other side. So what we've done is started a shell here, worked 1 shell, worked a single crochet in the next loop, chained 4, another single crochet, which brings us to another V-stitch loop right here. You can see that it was all worked in 1 stitch right there, so that's how we know it's a V-stitch loop. And now we're going to put another shell there. So that's 4 double crochets, chain 2, and 4 more double crochets. Okay, we've got our 4 double crochets there, chain 2, and then 4 more double crochets in the same spot. All right, there's our second shell there. So if you remember, what comes after a shell is we need to anchor it down in the next chain space. They're kind of stuck down there. This loosens up quite a bit when you block it, so it'll look even prettier once you've blocked it. So I've single crochet to anchor my shell down. Now between the shells, we always have that chain 4. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then I'm going to tack down the shell on the opposite side. It's going to start right here with a single crochet. So I did a shell, single crochet, chain 4, single crochet, and then I'm going to put another shell in this next V-stitch loop right here. So that shell again is 4 double crochets and a chain 2 and then 4 more double crochets. And then once that shell is complete, I'm going to single crochet in the next loop and then chain 4. So as you can see here, we're sort of doing this alternating pattern of shell and then a chain 4 loop and then shell and then chain 4 loop. But just to be super clear, so that if you're starting to learn how to read patterns, you can look at the pattern and sort of learn what we're doing. A repeat of the pattern, which is what we're doing all the way around, begins with, you would have done this chain 4. A repeat of the pattern is a single crochet in the next chain space here, and then a shell in the loop. So that's 4 double crochets, chain 2, and 4 more double crochets. So we've got that shell complete. Now we do a single crochet in the next chain space, and then we chain 4. And then we're back at the beginning of the repeat. So then you would single crochet here, shell, single crochet, chain 4. So I hope that that's clear, and if you're still feeling like you need a little bit of extra help, I highly recommend getting that ad-free PDF, because that stitch chart will show you exactly which stitches go where, and it won't move at all like my hands are. So let's go ahead and continue that repeat until we get back to our stitch marker. And at the end of the round here, I've worked a shell in my last little V-stitch loop, and I've single crocheted in my last chain space. And so now I need to just chain 4, and then I'm going to remove the stitch marker here and slip stitch into the single crochet that started this whole round. So as you can see then, that first single crochet of the round kind of counts. Well, it does count. It's kind of like the single crochet, chain 4, single crochet that usually happens between the shells. So now we're going to move on to row 4, and for row 4 we again need to turn our work. We're always working in turned rounds, so a row 2 and a row 4 are always going to be on the wrong side. We're done with our shell row, so now we need to do a row that is going to begin in the first chain 4 space. So in order to get into that, we need to slip stitch 2. So once I'm in there, I'm going to put my stitch marker right at the beginning, and this is going to mark the beginning of the round. And I know it seems a little silly to move it from, right here to right there when it's clearly around the same area. What I find helpful though is then if there's any confusion about where you are in the pattern repeat, you know exactly what you started with and where you need to finish. So from here, we're going to start with a chain 4. And then we're going to single crochet in the top of the shell. So that's the chain 2 space. And then we're going to chain 4 again. And we're going to work another V-stitch in the top of this little chain 4 loop. So I'm going to single crochet and then chain 4 and then single crochet in that same loop. So this should look pretty familiar. It's building a second little igloo shape on top of the first that was in the previous row. And that's all there is to this repeat actually. So let's try it one more time. We're going to chain 4. we're going to single crochet in the top of that shell. That's the chain 2 space. And then we're going to chain 4 again. And then we have this little chain 4 loop down here, so we're going to do that V loop in it. So that is a single crochet, a chain 4, and another single crochet. And now we're ready to do another repeat. So you would do a chain 4, single crochet in the top of the shell here, chain 4 more, and then do the V loop in this loop. So that's a single crochet, chain 4, single crochet. And we're just going to continue with that pattern all the way around this round. And now at the end of the round, we need to work one last repeat. We have one shell left. So I have a chain 4 here, and I'm going to go ahead and single crochet into the top of that shell. And then I'm going to chain 4. So all of this is just what we've always done the whole way around. So after I've chained 4, I need to work one more single crochet, chain 4, single crochet into this chain 4 loop. But just note that that's the same loop that we started in. So this is why it can be really helpful to just put your stitch marker in a specific spot, because you know exactly where we started. So I'm going to single crochet, chain 4, I'm going to take my stitch marker out there, and then single crochet again. And now we're going to slip stitch 1 into the first chain 4 space at the beginning of the round. So we're overlapping the beginning just slightly because it started right here, and we're slip stitching 1 over here just to position our yarn correctly for round 5. So I've moved my stitch marker to right there because that's where round 5 is going to begin. So just to recap, we did our chain 4 and then the V stitch here with the chain 4 here, and now we've slip stitched 1 into the first chain 4 space. Now we're going to go ahead and turn this, and this should mean that your right side is facing. So you'll see the right side of your shell as well as the right side of this fabric here. And because this is an odd number round, we're going to work a shell round now. And it's just beginning in a slightly different spot than round 3 did, so we're going to work it just a little bit differently. But if you notice here, we've got that chain 4 V stitch here, and here, and here, and that's where those shells are going to go. So we're going to start out right away with a shell, but because of where our yarn is attached, we're going to chain 3, and that's going to count as our first double crochet in the shell. So now we only need to do 3 more double crochets. 1, 2, 3. So including that chain 3, we've got 4 double crochets here, and then we're going to chain 2 and then do 4 more double crochets to complete the shell. And this first shell here with that chain 3, that's the exception to the repeat here. It's just to get the round started. The rest are going to look just like they did in round 3. All right, we've got that one shell completed here. We've done 4 double crochets, chain 2, 4 double crochets, and then we're going to single crochet in this first chain 4 space. And then once again, we'll chain 4 and single crochet over here in the next chain 4 space. So now we've got that shell, and now we're back at the beginning of the repeat. So just to be super clear, the repeat includes a single crochet in the next chain 4 space, and then chaining 4, and then a single crochet in the next chain 4 space. So you can think of it that you're always doing one of these little chain 4 loops over the top of the last shell that you see in the previous round of 3. So that's working right over top there because these shells are sort of nestled between each other. So then next in the repeat, you'll come across this chain 4 V stitch here, and that's where we're going to put our shell. So that's 4 double crochets, chain 2, and 4 more double crochets in that same V stitch. Okay, we've got our shell there, and that's the end of the repeat. So you can see now we would be back to putting a single crochet in this chain 4 space and chaining 4 and carrying on just like that. So we're going to continue in this pattern all the way back to our stitch marker. And as we approach the end of round 5 here, I've just worked a shell. So the last thing I need to do is single crochet in that next chain 4 space and then do my chain 4 right here. and then single crochet, skip over that single crochet right here and single crochet in the next chain 4 space. So that's just how we've always done it. And now all we need to do is slip stitch to the 3rd chain from the beginning of the round. And all that does is sort of anchor it to that 3rd chain, which served as our first double crochet of the shell. So now if we take off our stitch marker, we can see we've got that pattern of the chain 4 loop with a shell, and then the chain 4 loop, shell, chain 4 loop, shell. So this round is now complete, and we can turn our work. And to begin, we're going to slip stitch into this first chain 4 space just to get our yarn in position like we have been. And I'm going to put my stitch marker right there because that's the official beginning of the round now. And our repeat for this round is very similar to what we did in round 4. So we're going to start with a chain 1 and then single crochet, chain 4, and single crochet, all in that first chain 4 loop. Now we're going to chain 4 again, single crochet in the top of that shell, that's the chain 2 space there, and now we're going to chain 4 again. So that's the complete repeat here. So the way it looks when we're not starting off the round is we've got a single crochet in our next chain 4 space, and this is that V stitch. So we've got single crochet, then chain 4, single crochet in the same loop, and then we're going to chain 4 again, single crochet in the top of the shell, and then chain 4 again. So when you look at this, if you remember how we talked about in round 4, we've got these double-decker loops here. So we've got a space here, and then we've got another loop on top of it. And in the next round, that is where our shell is going to sit because it's kind of within the window of these two, right in between. So we're going to work all the way around, repeating this series of, now I would go to a single crochet, chain 4, single crochet in the same loop, chain 4, single crochet in the top of the shell, chain 4 again. And we're going to work like that all the way around. And as I approach the end of round 6 here, I'm going to chain 4, and then I'm going to slip stitch into that first single crochet from the beginning of the round. So that completes the round here. And then our last round, round 7, is very similar to what we did in round 3. It's just going to start in a slightly different spot, so in the pattern it's written differently, but you can know that all the skills are exactly the same. And from then on, we're going to repeat rows 4 through 7 to make the rest of the skirt. So I'm going to turn this around now. Now I have the right side facing, and to begin round 7, we need to slip stitch into that first chain loop. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to put my marker there because that indicates the very beginning of this round. So once we have that there, we are going to chain 1 and then just single crochet in that same loop. And then from here we need to chain 4. And then we're going to single crochet in the next loop over. So this is all going to look really familiar now. Now we're at this V stitch right here. So we are going to work 4 double crochets, chain 2, and 4 double crochets all in that little loop. Okay, now I've got that shell complete. We've got 4 double crochets, chain 2, 4 double crochets. My next step is to single crochet into that next chain loop. So as you can see here, we're just going to repeat this all the way around. This is technically the beginning of the repeat here. So we're single crocheting here, and then we're going to chain 4, and then we're going to single crochet in the next chain loop, and then we're going to make that shell in the next V stitch. So that's 4 double crochets, chain 2, 4 double crochets. And we're going to continue like that all the way around. So this is very similar to round 3 and round 5. So let's go ahead and work all the way around just like that. All right, so now we're coming to the end of this round, and I have one more V loop to work into. So I'm going to do one of those little shells there, which is 4 double crochets, and then chain 2, and then 4 more double crochets. And now that I have that shell, all that's left to do is to slip stitch into that first single crochet from the beginning of the round. So that's over here in the next chain loop. So I'm going to slip stitch to that. And now we're done with round 7, and we're just going to repeat rounds 4 through 7 now for the rest of the skirt. So if this is a part that's really easy to customize, if you want to make your skirt longer, you just continue with some extra repeats. If you want it shorter, or if you want more of a peplum style top, then you're just going to work fewer rounds in this 4 through 7 repeat. The one thing to note is that if you adjust the length at all, you're going to want to make sure you end with either a round 5 or a round 7, because that's what's going to create this nice shelled edging at the bottom of your dress or top. So just finish with one of those rounds, and then you should be ready to block your dress. We've made it so far in the Idlewild pattern, and next week we're going to finish our dresses by blocking them, making sleeves, and adding a simple trim to the neckline. Remember to share your progress on social media with the hashtag IdlewildDress, and be sure to tag me so I can see. Until next time, happy crocheting!